It seems that the valley developments took place about the 13th to 14th century, and charcoal at the Great Enclosure was dated 1380 plus or minus 90. No one ruin and the renders, Mach, and East ruins were built in the peace style in the valley. These were probably built in response to the increased trade and may have been used to house the traders when they arrived, and before their more serious permanent presence later on. Walls called R were not well made and were mostly outlying ruins. The rough R walling may have been for cattle enclosures and less important structures, while the brick-like Q came with the Arabs. When the Arabs left, there is evidence that the Acropolis later again became the focal centre. There is a tradition of some Lemba Sena coming from the northern Malawi and meeting an Arab. They came to Great Zimbabwe when it was already being built, and they joined in the building. This and other accounts show that even if the Arabs were the brains behind some of the architecture, it appears that the Sena were the local skilled stonemasons. The Sena people had already settled at Great Zimbabwe with their period 3 culture. They had also started the art of stone building, but with their trade contacts they could not live in isolation from foreigners, particularly the Muslim Arabs who dominated the east coast. About 1300 we see the arrival of an Arabic influence at Great Zimbabwe. As they moved inland to trade with the Sena people, one of the logical places to set up a trading centre was at Great Zimbabwe, the same location where the Sena chief lived. When these Arabs set up their trading place at the bottom of the hill, it was built on similar lines to other Arabic sheikh residences. Great Zimbabwe stands out as being superior in size and trade importance in its time over other settlements in the interior. This is best explained as a Kilwa trading settlement and may have had its own sheikh. The Arab sheikh would have had his living quarters, and this adjoined by a mosque and other trading and servants' quarters. The prosperity would have affected the Sena here as well, who would have had their own leaders or a chief based at the Acropolis. The later Shona never had class as a major organizing principle. Local people at Great Zimbabwe believe that there had been a village on the hill and a separate one on the plain. There are plenty of written and oral sources complementing the archaeology to show that Arab trading was part of the economy at Great Zimbabwe and in Southeast Africa. With the exception of Great Zimbabwe, most ruins have few foreign items. Glass beads were the exception, and possibly cloth. Great Zimbabwe had trade items from all over. Not only were there local products, but probably items from Zambia or northern Zimbabwe, possibly the Congo, Arab, Indian, Chinese, and European items. 3 hawk bells were found at Great Zimbabwe, and these were like those used by the Arabs on the coast. The sheet iron gongs were probably brought in by the Arabs. Similar ones were found in the Congo and at Dlodlo, in places also frequented by Arabs. In the ruins we also have a type of pottery which is called ribbed ware. This has been found at Gedi in Kenya and would be Arabic. The Gedi ribbed ware is thought to date from the 12th century. There was one woman who made ribbed ware up to recent times in the Bawi tribe. It has been found in Nyanga at places such as Ziwa, Vanyekuk, and Nyamombongwe ruins, and at the Naimara ruins. It has been found at Great Zimbabwe at the Mound and Mach ruins, trading sites, and at the Terraceville near the Acropolis. A pot from Kwekwe in Zimbabwe's Midlands may also belong to this tradition. The most likely makers of this pottery would have been the Arabic or Swahili Moors. They may have brought the pots with them from the coast, and in some rare cases brought their wives inland with them to make the pottery. At Great Zimbabwe, the method of attaching the Zimbabwe daggers to their handles was similar to a Mediterranean Bronze Age technique. An Arab lamp stand was found in handcuffs, showing at some point in the settlement's history the Arabs may have been slaving there. One cache in the lower ruins had 30,000 beads, which helped support that these ruins adjoining the main enclosure were used by traders. A bronze Arabic scale was found at Naimara, and the Naimara site dates from between 1600 to 1800. One of the first living quarters one comes across as one goes east out of the great enclosure was the No-One enclosure in the Renders Rune, which may have been used for smelting copper and iron. The Renders Rune produced a remarkable catch of trading items. So what did they find here in one of the corners of one of the enclosures? They found glazed pottery with Arab lettering, an iron lampstand, a copper chain, an iron spoon, copper snake rings of foreign workmanship, and several other items of foreign influence, showing this was the residence of an Arab. Among the items found here were beads and cowrie shells for trade. Some elephant ivory was found with warthog tusks and gold, items that had obviously been traded. Also found with the Arab items were a large piece of coral and some thin white clay china with blue and gold enamel. Bent, the archaeologist, states, in all probability this was an Arab trading post of medieval times, and he was spot on. There is also a possibility of the presence of some Arabic woman, as the Arab jewelry was highly unlikely to have been brought in for a Bantu woman. The ceramics found at the Renders section of the ruins were of such a quality that even in the coastal towns they were unlikely to have been used in everyday life. This shows there was an Arab present and someone of high standing. The Islamic glass, like that used at Kilwa, shows that the Arabs were living here, as this glass was not an item that was normally traded. The artifacts in the Renders ruins show that in the 14th century, Great Zimbabwe had far-reaching trade contacts with the Arab world. The wealth of the finds here supports the evidence that the lowland ruins were an Arab trading settlement, with them living close to the great enclosure, and they were not settled here for long. The Persian faience bowls with writing and the Arabic glass found were dated somewhere between the 13th to the 15th century. Somewhere in this mass of the Mach and Renders ruins, Mrs. E. Goodall in 1943 found a great quantity of glass and gold beads, which was also probably an Arab trader's stock. The Chinese Celadon pottery found at Great Zimbabwe has also been found at Motoko, the Shashi ruins, and Mapungubwe. There was some debate as to whether it was Sung or Ming. Archaeologists at Great Zimbabwe in 1971 discovered a small Kilwa copper coin, upon which was inscribed in Arabic the name Al-Hassan bin Suleiman. We know he was the Sultan of Kilwa from about 1320 to 1333. In other words, this coin was made in Kilwa at exactly the time when Ibn Battuta visited the city-state and wrote about the gold trade with areas inland from Sofala. The evidence suggests strongly that there were trading links between Zimbabwe and Kilwa, that it was Zimbabwe and its people that lay inland from Sofala, and that gold played an important part in the relationship between Kilwa and Zimbabwe. Perhaps the people of Zimbabwe were the Yufi of Limin, referred to by Ibn Battuta. It is also likely that this is the date of the building of the great enclosure, under the influence of these Arabs.